Hello and welcome to the Pop-Off PC Mag's Video Game Show. I'm Jordan Miner. We've been reborn into another episode.
Yes.
We just filmed one. I'm going to ruin the illusion right now.
No, how dare you?
Ruining it right now. We filmed 2 episodes today.
I even switched
switched
seats.
seats.
and
We switched
everything.
seats.
I can't believe
The
it.
people deserve the truth. They deserve
the truth is-
The truth is that you're here with us, Gabe.
I am. Gabriel Zamora here. I just finished reviewing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and it's good.
Damn.
Zach, you're also here.
I'm also here.
That's
I'm
also
here-
accurate.
Yeah. I'm here to talk about Final Fantasy and learn about what Gabe experienced.
Cool. So in the 80s or whatever, they put out a game called Final Fantasy. They put out one game.
That's
and
true.
then they put out dozens more, including the very first Final Fantasy VII. In 1997, I wrote about it in this book, Video Game of the Year.
Game of the year.
Which is to say that it's a very important game. It changed a lot for Japanese role-playing games, for the original PlayStation, for Square. I mean, just at the time, just Square, for their whole fortunes. It unleashed Tetsuya Nomura on us, whether we like it or not. So, that first game, monumental. So I thought we could maybe just kind of start off talking about our kind of background with the original Final Fantasy VII before we get into the remake stuff here.
Sounds good.
You go first?
Take it away.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Were you there?
I was there, and I actually didn't like Final Fantasy VII when I played the original way back in like '97. I thought it was kind of wonky and ugly, and I didn't like the Final Fantasy series at all until I played Final Fantasy IX, and then I thoroughly enjoyed that. And then I had a friend in school who was like, "Man, if you like 9, you really got to play 7." I'm like, "All right, man, whatever." So he lent me his copy, and I played it, and I'm like, "All right, let me give it a chance." Now that I have experience with 9, and I'm a little more patient with the weird turn-based combat system, let me see what this game is about. And I played it, and I was actually genuinely impressed. It's a really good game. I don't like it as much as 9, but I have a tremendous amount of respect for Final Fantasy VII and what it did for Square and for Sony at the time, really, because it really put Sony on the map as well. It's one of those like legacy games for that console. It's a great game. It's a great RPG. And yeah, I mean, that's really all I have to say for it, except, it's not my favorite, but I love it. It's good stuff.
Oh, you, Zach. You seem like a freak.
I actually skipped Final Fantasy VII. My first Final Fantasy was 10 on the PS2. One of those 9/11 jam-packed demo disc.
Oh.
They had a playable opening of Final Fantasy X. I played that nonstop until I bought the game, and I loved it. And then I went back to Final Fantasy VII years later, and that was like the first time I played it when I was like, Final Fantasy VII. I'd known about it. Any show I'd watch, they always reference. Oh man, so many people cried when Aerith died, or wow, Sephiroth's so scary.
Spoilers.
Well, I mean,
can't
sorry.
believe it.
Sorry to spoil the 28-year-old game or whatever, but yeah, and so I was aware of Final Fantasy VII's legacy before I even played it. Now, when I finally played it, I thought this is pretty good.
It's pretty good.
And then I played it again later on a few years ago, and when it came to Game Pass, actually,
Okay.
and I didn't think it aged well.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't think it aged well. And it's funny that you say you didn't like it at first and then you liked it later on. I felt the opposite. I felt like I every time I returned to Final Fantasy VII, I'm like, it's so like crusty. It's so janky. And more so than 8 or 9 or 10.
Absolutely, yeah. It is a very janky game. That being said, like once you get past that jank and you kind of appreciate the systems working underneath it, it's a good game.
Oh, yeah.
But I absolutely agree that like it's an ugly game. The controls like on the map moving around feel a little weird.
Yeah.
And you can tell that this was kind of like Square's first time with these pre-rendered backgrounds where a lot of times you don't know where the hell you're
It's
supposed
very
to go.
hard to see.
You can't tell where you're going. You're like, oh, can I walk on that path? You cannot walk on that path. Okay, and then you got to push like the select button to see where the arrows are, to see where you can go. It was not very well designed, but like you're young and dumb, so you kind of overlook that when you're playing it the first time, and you're like, this game is amazing. Like, never mind those little things.
Something that helps too is that when you play these modern ports of it, they added all these like easy mode,
Yeah,
kind
there's
of
a lot of quality
turbo
of life
speed
stuff.
and infinite health and all that, which is how I first played the game.
Oh, okay.
When
Really?
they put out those ports, because I never had an original PlayStation. I have just never been a JRPG person, aside from maybe like Pokemon. I've never really had the patience for that genre, and just sort of you can't be into games without having like some amount of anime tolerance, but just the whole character design and that whole at the time I was not really into at the time. But as I became older and I became like, if I'm going to write a book about the history of important video games, I should probably play Final Fantasy VII. And I did, all the quality of life stuff helped. And it helped for me also just approach it as like a historical object of, I can see at the time how the shift to these like sci-fi kind of eco-terrorism themes must have been really cool for people.
And the shift from 2D to 3D. I mean, genuine 3D in 97.
Yeah, all the different, how they have that's why the art style, I felt like you could tell that the art style was kind of made to fit within the sort of limitations of what the polygons could do. And the stuff with the pre-rendered backgrounds, it's almost like matte paintings, like an old movie or something. So I can appreciate that more now. But it's a game that's very beloved and a game that could stand to be remade. And in 2020, let's go back through their whole history of teasing these remakes. I believe they first showed off a tech demo on the PS3.
That's right, yes.
For what a remake could look like. It got people all hot and bothered because it wasn't a real game. Advent Children was coming out sort of around that time, maybe. My timeline could be off. They were doing their whole compilation of Final Fantasy VII stuff. So they wanted people to still be invested in this universe. But then in 2015, that legendary E3 where they had also Shenmue 3 and
who could forget?
Who could forget the announcement of the Kickstarter for Shenmue 3?
They had that and Last Guardian. They then finally announced we are going to remake Final Fantasy VII, and I don't know if this came later, but it's going to be multiple parts. And so in 2020, the first part comes out, and it's great. It's shocking to me how actually great that first remake is, and how much they maintained kind of the spirit of that game while really evolving it in some really, really great ways.
And considering they stayed within the first few hours of the original game.
Just in the Midgar section.
The Midgar section. The remake is good. And the remake is... so they could have just went an easy route and just kept Final Fantasy VII's bones intact and just gave it a visual upgrade. I think that would have been the most boring route to go, but I think that what they're doing is really ambitious. Splitting it into 3 parts, I can't decide if that ambition is, warranted.
I mean, listen, I'll defend StarCraft 2, 1, 2, 3 all the time.
I just mean like splitting the game up into 3 parts. Like, why would they do that? The answer is obviously money. But they also, splitting Midgar into its own game worked, but can you do that for other parts of the game? And we'll find out when the second game comes out if it hits as well as the first game.
But what did you think about the first part of the remake?
The first part of the remake I thought was good. I definitely agree with Zach in that I was a little curious about why it ended where it did and why it was just focused on the Midgar section, which in the original 7 is essentially the tutorial area. So they made an entire game based on the tutorial, the first 6 hours of the original game. They did a good job of kind of stretching that story out and establishing everything that you need to know about it. And they incorporated some story elements from a little bit later, just a little bit past that Midgar section into the, into the Midgar story so that you kind of get a more rounded experience overall. That being said, I do have some criticisms of it, but overall, I think it was a really well-made game. And I understand why they also went with that approach of splitting it up, because you can't make a game of this quality that long and that big without just a massive amount of development and R&D and all. I feel like this was kind of the test, the litmus test was the original remake, where they made the game and they made the assets and they made the combat system and they made all the mechanics and models. And they said, let's see how good this is, if this works. And then they took the next step with Rebirth, where they're like, okay, we know it works. Now let's actually make the rest of the game.
But I really like how the first game too. It reimagines a lot of that Midgar section. It certainly does. It's a few hours long in the original game,
right?
But and they reimagine the whole story, and they could go beat for beat and sort of follow the story, but they make these diversions until eventually they split off from the plot entirely at the end of the game. At the end of the first remake. But I really like how it maintains a balance of this new freshness and this it understands its legacy as Final Fantasy VII as this game that people grew up with and people hold in this high regard. They know that. I'm sure the people developing the game probably grew up with the original Final Fantasy VII and want to sort of bring out the emotion and the gravitas that those blocky characters held for them in 97, you know? And I think that's to the remakes, just how good it is that it's able to tell a new story. It's tell something familiar while also unraveling a new mystery, and keep everyone on their toes.
Right.
So I think we came out of Remake, all of us, excited for Rebirth. Yeah. Gabe, you've played it, you've reviewed it for BC Mag, people can read that review. I guess we'll get into more detail, but what's sort of your overall impression? What's your big takeaway? Were we right to be excited?
We're going to have no spoilers.
No, we are definitely going to avoid spoilers. But my big takeaway from this is that they did a very good job of realizing the world of Final Fantasy VII in a way that kind of follows, I guess, very intelligently from what they already established in Remake. So it's a lot of that. In Remake, the exploration was very Carter based. And I would say this open world is an expansion of that. So it's still kind of linear in a way that like it's more very, very, very wide paths, right? Rather than say Zelda, where it's just like an open world and you can just goof off and do whatever you want.
Is it similar to Final Fantasy 16's? Like it's not quite open world, but there was wide spaces.
It's
How about this for comparison? How about something like a Halo 1 or a Far Cry 1, their approach to their kind of shooter level design, where it's like open, but it's not like an open world. Like the first Far Cry, or like the Silent Cartographer.
I feel like the only Far Cries that I've played, I think I played some of 2 and most of 3.
Okay.
So if it's similar to those, maybe. But I would say that it's more like, I guess it's kind of like 16 in that like it's big open spaces. But if it's like a bunch of big open spaces lined up back to back to back to back, and you can walk seamlessly between all of them. It is an open world. Now there's a lot of like rugged terrain that you can't get across. So that's what kind of gives it that corridor-ish sort of feel.
Okay.
But it still feels expansive enough where you don't really feel like you're constrained or constricted in any way.
Do you think
it's very wide.
Do you think it's because they're still having to work within the framework of the original game? Because that wasn't an open world game either, and they still need to kind of funnel players through.
Okay, there is definitely that, and that's part of like the story sort of like direction where the game where Rebirth is more linear than the original game, and that it really does steer you towards point A to point B to point C. Okay. Whereas, I mean, the original did as well, but the original gave you options. So if you wanted to, say, fight the Midgardsormr in the first game, in the original, you could just go in there and get your butt kicked, and it would destroy you unless you leveled up enough or you had some tricks that you could use to, say, poison it or something. And this time around, that's not quite the case. It's not optional, if you know what I mean. Like, you don't have an option. So that's kind of what I mean, where it's like, it's very scripted in a way that like a lot of open world modern games are, where they want you to see everything that the game has to offer. Gotcha. And the route will take you through most of that. So you don't really miss much.
Okay.
I mean, there is still optional stuff to do on these maps. And like, I missed the Moogle house for a while. Like I didn't even realize
there's a Moogle house?
Yeah. There was a little Mog house in the mini game in the original game. And I just walked past it. I didn't even notice it was there the first time I was in like the Chocobo Ranch area.
Yeah.
They got chocobos in this?
They do.
They got these little birds?
They have chocobos.
Wonderful little giant chickens.
You ride on them.
You ride them.
You have a chocobo mount.
Yeah, they all ride them.
Chocobo enough. Racing.
Yeah, Red 13 rides it too, which is really weird to see.
It's like Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, it's like you see a little cat riding a chicken.
Animals riding other animals.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the world was kind of the biggest thing that I was curious about because I like the first remake a lot, but I felt a little.
It was very linear.
I felt a bit constrained by that. So it sounds good to hear that they have expanded upon that.
They did a really good job. Where if you guys remember Chadley from Remake, he's kind of like your open world guide. So he'll kind of tell he'll hit you up whenever you uncover something, and he's like, "Hey, this is related to this. You should check this other stuff out." And then you kind of go there and figure it out. And he's kind of like your guide as you explore the world. And that kind of makes the experience a little more linear, which I appreciate because it's like you're not just like overwhelmed. It's like, oh, I have like a path that I could take or objectives that I can do.
A big area that the remake vastly changed from the original was in the combat. They went from just pure turn-based, JRPG combat to this sort of action RPG combat that I really enjoyed in the remake. And then we haven't played the full Rebirth yet, but I think we both played the demo.
Yeah.
So we've also kind of sampled some of that combat. But we can talk a little more about how they've sort of fleshed that out.
So Remake, as Jordan already established, is an action game, essentially. So it's like an action RPG in that there's stats and stuff, but for the most part, you're moving around and you attack one-to-one with your characters. And in that sense, like it's very similar to, like we were discussing earlier, like the Dissidia fighting games, like an arena fighting game, like I guess Naruto, like the Ultimate Ninja games, or Dissidia, or Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, you want to hit him with your theory here?
It's talking about Kingdom Hearts, but
I didn't want to bring it up, but I could see the thread from Kingdom Hearts to Final Fantasy Remake in its combat system. Not gonna get too much into it.
No, there are parallels.
There are parallels.
Final Fantasy is very good.
Right.
It's super good.
I saw the flashbacks to your eyes when I mentioned Kingdom Hearts the first time.
But I love it. I love what I played in the demo. I loved it in that first game. I think they have a great blend of just pressing the button to make your sword hit enemies.
Yeah.
Just feels good and fast and flashy. Pausing to activate your abilities and spells and stuff as just the right amount of like strategy, but without feeling like it's totally killing your momentum. In the demo, you play a Sephiroth. Like, they do a great job of having the characters all feel differently. Yeah. And the bit in the demo where you play a Sephiroth feels incredible.
And even in the new part, the Junon part where you played as Red 13, which we still haven't. This was the first time we're playing as Red 13 in the new remake. So, no, it feels good, feels different.
Yes, it's definitely different from like. It's different for like 16, for example. Final Fantasy 16 had a very Devil May Cry kind of energy to it. So it was very combo-centric. And this game is as well, but there's a lot more actions and kind of strategy and thinking that comes along with it. Kind of like slowing down the menu to select your abilities and elemental weaknesses. And all of the elements that you remember from the original game are still present in some way, shape, or form in the action in Remake and Rebirth. Which is really good. I think the only criticism that I've had with Remake and with Rebirth still is that the aerial combat is not quite as good as I would like it to be. They kind of spruce this up a little bit with like team attacks. So like if you hold block, you have a couple of abilities that you could do that, depending on the character, have different effects. Like with Tifa, if you're blocking, you can actually springboard off of Cloud's sword to get into the air, and that's like the jump button. So if you need to do like aerial combos against enemies, you could use that. Or some of your later abilities, the ATB abilities that you can use, will also put you into the air or in an aerial state, so you can follow up with combos like that.
The bit of that was in Intergrade as well, like a kind of early version of some of those systems were in Intergrade.
Synergy attacks were. Yeah, the
Yuffie
synergy attacks.
And her guy.
Yeah, so those are synergy attacks, which is like super like limit break attacks, which are separate from the limit breaks, but that's also in the game. But those are more like flashy dual techs from like Chrono Trigger. So if you've played Chrono Trigger, you know those abilities. That's kind of what it's like.
That's a game. There's a game.
That is a timeless. Yeah, that's a whole other story. So the combat roll is excellent. I'd say the only criticism I have is I wish that you could just jump. That's really it. But okay, I mean,
so the action, great. What about the role playing? Something in your review I found pretty fascinating was that the way that you talk with characters can vary and impact the story.
Yeah, so this comes up pretty early on, actually. Like once you start talking with NPCs and with your party members, you'll get like dialogue options to engage with them. So like Mass Effect, where you have like the Renegade option or the options like that. So they're not always like super negative or anything, but like it's just more like you get to say what you want, and then you get a different reaction from the characters based on what you say. Now, in the original game, the PS1 game, there was a little section around the middle to end of the game, or the middle of the game, where those interactions that you had actually had like a hidden gauge behind it that you couldn't see that would influence certain events during that section. This game has that as well. I'm not allowed to discuss more about that, but that is preserved in this, so you can role play and butter up your favorite characters.
Is that meter that was invisible in the original game? Is that outward?
It is visible now. I'm not sure if the demo has it, but you got like a little happy face icon over your characters.
Oh, okay.
When you're exploring in like certain towns and such, and you can see like if it's like a green or it's like purple or whatever, and they got like a smiley face, and you're like, oh, they like me. Yeah.
Okay. So the story, you probably can't talk too much about that.
Not too much, but I can share a little bit.
Picking up from the Midgar stuff, and you can't even say even what chunk of the game that it even covers ultimately.
I think I could safely say that it is the middle story arc in Final Fantasy VII.
Okay. Were you satisfied with the story?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does it kind of continue at least the ways in which the first game I loved was how it was about sort of challenging the notion of what the story should even be in these games.
Very much so in this case.
Keep it vague. Let's keep it
I
vague.
will keep it vague,
brief.
but it preserves the story of the original game, but it still does what Final Fantasy VII Remake does, where it injects a lot of its own stuff to kind of spin that story around a little bit. And I know some people some people hated that in Remake. They were like, I just want a remake. Unfortunately, that's not the case here. It's still like the story of the original game, but it's definitely twisted up a little bit in a way that makes it a little more interesting. I personally enjoyed that a lot, but I know there are people out there who didn't. But, just know going in that the story gets a little spicy.
I just say that because that, to me, is the best part. And that's the thing that I'm most looking forward to for the final part of this whole trilogy. They've said it'll be 3 games. What I'm most looking forward to is just how they pay off some of that more metatextual stuff about it kind of being aware that is a remake. But, what are our hopes for kind of the last part of this game? What will they even call it? Remix?
Rebirth. What do they call the Evangelion games?
Rebuild the Final Fantasy VII.
Rebuild the Final Fantasy. Yeah.
But what were we hoping? It's not that they've hit it out of the park twice now. So
yes.
What are we hoping for this to kind of bring it on home here?
Like I said, for me, it's the gameplay. Like, I just give me a jump button and I don't really care. I'm fine with that.
That's
just let me jump and that's all I want. Like, because I really like that in Final Fantasy 16, where it's just like, oh, it's like Devil May Cry, but with Clive and he's all cool and that. I want to do that. I just let me jump and I'm fine. I understand why they did it in this game. It's because the original game didn't have that. Like, if you had a melee unit, you couldn't hit aerial units, and I feel like it's very deliberate to make you use those characters. But sometimes I just want to jump and let me do that. And that's it. But that's really like a minor nitpick in the grand scheme of things. It's really kind of nothing. You definitely work around that in the game.
Oh, you, Zach. Have any more ambitious desires?
Well, they've got those 2 party members that they're part of the original game, but they still they're not playable in the Sid and Vincent.
Yes,
so we can look forward to that third. But I want them to make the third part unrecognizable.
Really?
And I want them, I don't know how the second part ends. I have theories of it. And I want them to swing for the fences and make something that's unrecognizable to those folks who, hold Final Fantasy VII near and dear. I like to compare, speaking of Evangelion, I like to compare the Final Fantasy game, the remakes, to the Evangelion rebuilds, and how the second movie pivoted from the Evangelion set story, and then the third movie is unrecognizable. I want something of that impact in the second game to influence the third game, to make it like its own beast. But in its own beast in the sense that, like, it is so far removed from the events of the game, but yet the spirit is still there. It still channels what makes those games so great, but mirror it or change it entirely. And to me, that's I don't want to say it, but like, to me, I think that means someone aside from Aerith has to die.
Mickey Mouse, for example.
Or Goofy, like in Kingdom Hearts.
That
was traumatizing.
So we'll see when Final Fantasy VII Part 3 Revengeance comes out for the PS6 in like 4 or 5 years from now.
It's 2026 is what they're aiming for.
Really?
Okay, so a little faster.
Yeah.
Now they got their pipeline down. So
well, now that they got the world established, it's kind of like step by step. They established the gameplay and the framework in 1. They got the world map in 2. So now it's just more.
And I wonder if they're gonna add DLC. I mean, Intergrade was a nice little teaser for what was to come, and introduced a character in it. So maybe Vincent will get his own DLC, or Sid.
Maybe. But in the meantime, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is out probably when you're watching this, or soon. You can definitely read Gabe's review on PC Mag.
Please do.
Right now, you gave it a 4.5 EC. Great score.
Woo!
I recommend it.
Yep. So Gabe, Zach, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
And I'll talk to you next time.
I need to spin something.
This little guy.
Ooh.
Oh.
Ow.
Quite a spin.
There was water in there.
Splash zone.